Hello and welcome everyone. Let me ask you a quiet but essential question. Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling emotionally drained, even though nothing outright wrong was said? Or maybe you've spent time with someone whose presence slowly eroded your peace, even if you couldn't explain why. Today's video is about recognizing subtle, quiet cues that reveal when someone may not suit your emotional and mental well-being. Specifically, we'll be talking about toxic traits that can hide behind charm, warmth, or even vulnerability. It's not always about confrontation or conflict. Sometimes, noticing the patterns, the victim stories, the constant drama, the quiet guilt, or the lack of empathy, gradually wears you down. The goal here isn't to label or condemn others. Instead, it empowers you to understand better what to accept in your relationships and what to walk away from. We'll also draw on timeless Stoic teachings that remind us of our power, protecting our peace, setting clear boundaries, and living with self-respect. Because while we can't always control who enters our lives, we can choose who gets to stay. So stay with me until the end. These 7 signs may help you see certain relationships in a new light and, maybe, help you reclaim the calm you've been missing. Sign 1. She's addicted to drama. Some women seem to breathe more easily in conflict than in calm. In the quiet moments when everything should feel secure, they grow restless. Stability makes them uneasy. They poke at small things just to feel something sharper, more vivid, more alive. What looks like chaos to others is often where they feel most at home. You might notice how arguments flare up over the most minor issues: a delayed reply, a misunderstood glance, or a tone of voice that didn't carry the warmth she expected. It's rarely about the surface issue. It's the pattern underneath that matters. These moments of friction aren't accidents. They're fuel. For some women, drama becomes an emotional addiction. Like any high, it creates a rush of attention, validation, intensity. Without it, life feels flat. She instinctively stirs the waters in those calm and ordinary stretches where a connection could deepen and trust could grow. Not because she wants to destroy the relationship, but because she doesn't know how to feel safe without noise. She creates emotional storms not out of malice, but out of habit. Seneca once said, "An angry man opens his mouth and shuts his eyes." The same holds for someone who's drawn to drama. When she feels unheard, she speaks louder. When she feels unseen, she creates scenes. Logic fades and raw emotion takes over. In those moments, she's not looking for a resolution. She's looking for a reaction. For a man, this cycle is exhausting. He tries to soothe, explain, and offer reason, but reason doesn't land where emotion runs the show. Over time, he finds himself walking on eggshells, unsure what version of her he'll meet next. Peace starts to feel like a fragile truce rather than a shared home. This pattern isn't always apparent in the early days. Drama can feel like passion at first. Her intensity can be magnetic, but over time, the heat begins to burn instead of warm. What once looked like deep feeling reveals itself as emotional volatility. The man who learns to see this pattern clearly understands that not all passion is connection and not all chaos is love. He sees that a woman addicted to drama is not reaching out for partnership but for control, and he learns the strength to step back, not to punish but to protect his peace. In a lasting relationship, calm is not the enemy, it's the foundation. Sign 2. She's always the victim. Some women have mastered the art of control without ever raising their voices. They do it through a story they've carefully rehearsed, The story where they are always the ones who were hurt, misunderstood, or betrayed. To the man listening, it often sounds like compassion is needed, but what's unfolding is a subtle distortion of truth and power. She talks about her exes with a recurring theme. They were all cruel or careless, friends, disloyal, family, emotionally absent. Even strangers become characters in her narrative of injustice. The pattern isn't always apparent at first. Her stories are vivid, emotionally charged, and convincing. She may cry as she speaks, she may pause as if reliving the pain, but at the center of every tale is the same message: she is the one who suffered. This image of perpetual victimhood serves a purpose. It creates emotional leverage. A man who sees her as fragile, wounded, and surrounded by villains becomes invested in protecting her. He feels special, chosen, even heroic. He doesn't see that his role was written long before he arrived, and the cost of playing it is his clarity. When everything terrible is always someone else's fault, she never has to look inward. There's no room for accountability or growth, and anyone who questions her narrative is either dismissed or painted as the next threat. Over time, this dynamic erodes a man's ability to set boundaries. He becomes afraid to upset her, to challenge her version of reality. He begins to believe that protecting her means doubting himself. But strength isn't found in rescuing someone from their own unresolved story. As Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. A man must learn to step back and ask, am I comforting someone who needs healing, or enabling someone who refuses to take responsibility? Genuine connection requires two people willing to own their past without turning it into a weapon. When a woman positions herself as the victim in every chapter of her life, it's not just a red flag, it's a warning, because eventually someone else will become the villain in her story, and if you're not careful, that someone could be you. Sign 3. She controls through guilt. Sometimes control doesn't come through raised voices or confrontation. It arrives quietly, wearing the mask of hurt feelings and unspoken expectations. A man may find himself walking on emotional eggshells, not because she demands anything out loud, but because her silence speaks volumes. She withdraws affection and pulls back her presence. And the shift in her energy makes him question if he's done something wrong. He has often simply prioritized himself, his work, friends, and peace. And that, to her, feels like a betrayal. This kind of control is not loud, it's quiet, persistent, and difficult to name. She might not accuse him directly, but she lets him feel her disappointment. A cancelled plan becomes a personal slight. A missed call turns into a test of loyalty. Her reactions aren't explosive, they're subdued and strategic. The goal isn't a resolution, it's submission. She wants him to feel like his happiness comes at her cost. And so he starts adjusting, not out of love, but out of guilt. He stays a little longer, apologizes for things he didn't do, and avoids choices that might upset her. Over time, her needs become the center of his emotional landscape. He learns to anticipate her silences, decode her mood swings, and offer explanations even when none are requested. He doesn't realize that his autonomy is slowly being replaced by compliance. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself," and this is the heart of the matter. A man who lives in fear of disappointing a woman who punishes him with silence or guilt has already surrendered the core of his freedom. He becomes a performer in a relationship built on fragile approval, not a partner standing in mutual respect. What's dangerous about this form of control is how reasonable it seems. It's not apparent. There are no ultimatums, just a persistent undercurrent that says, if you loved me, you would always choose me, even over yourself. And that belief is the trap. A healthy relationship does not require guilt as fuel. It thrives on open communication, respect for each other's boundaries, and the understanding that love cannot be sustained where freedom is not allowed to breathe. Sign 4. She can't admit she's wrong. A subtle fracture forms in a relationship when one person can't admit fault. At first, it might look like pride or just a lousy mood, but over time it becomes more damaging. You bring up an issue calmly, hoping for understanding, yet what follows is a sharp deflection, a turning of the spotlight back onto you. Instead of hearing your concern, she tells you it's your fault for being too sensitive or not understanding her better. The moment becomes less about solving the problem and more about protecting her image of being right. This inability to acknowledge mistakes doesn't just cause frustration, it slowly erodes trust. You start to feel like your feelings are always under cross-examination, while hers are never up for question. What was once a partnership begins to feel like a courtroom, where you're always on trial and she's never on the stand. Over time, this imbalance breeds resentment. The true strength in a relationship comes from the courage to admit we're wrong. The Stoic emperor Marcus Aurelius once said, "If anyone can refute me, I'll gladly change." A simple statement that reveals deep emotional maturity. It's not about being perfect, but about valuing truth more than pride. A healthy woman knows that admitting a mistake doesn't make her weak, it makes her human. However, a woman consistently refuses to take responsibility, even for small things that signal something more toxic beneath the surface. Men often stay longer than they should, hoping things will change, telling themselves she's just stressed or misunderstood. But when apologies never come, and every conflict becomes a maze of blame, the more profound truth becomes clear. This isn't just miscommunication, it's a pattern. And patterns don't break without self-awareness. Both people must be willing to hold a mirror for themselves in a lasting connection. If she can never say, "I was wrong," then the burden of emotional growth will always fall on you. And love built on one-sided accountability is not love, it's survival. Sign 5. She's obsessed with superficial things. There is a specific type of woman whose eyes light up not at the sound of laughter or the warmth of connection, but at the shimmer of something new. Her focus isn't on how a man treats her, but on what brand of shoes he's wearing or the car he's driving. In her world, the value of a moment is measured not by how it makes her feel, but by how it looks to others. When a man finds himself with a woman like this, he feels more like a prop in her life story than a partner in her journey. She often talks about images, about who's wearing what, where they're going for vacation, and who just bought a new condo in the city. Conversations with her are filled with references to trends and upgrades, but rarely to inner peace or shared dreams. Status symbols replace emotional substance. The things she values shine, but they don't glow from within. In truth, this obsession with appearances signals something more profound. A woman who constantly seeks validation through the external often struggles to find stability in the internal. She builds her sense of self on things that can be bought, flaunted, or admired by others. But no matter how much she acquires, it never truly satisfies, because, at its core, materialism is a hunger that feeds itself. As the Stoic Epictetus once wrote, Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. This kind of woman lives in constant want, and that endless want consumes not only her, but also the men who try to love her. The emotional drain can be subtle initially for a man in a relationship with someone like this. He might try to keep up, to dress sharper, work harder, and spend more generously. But over time he realized that love here is conditional. It's tied to appearance, performance, and presentation. If he falters, if the shine wears off, she begins to drift. Because what she was chasing was never him, it was the image of what he could represent. And that's the danger. A woman fixated on the superficial may appear to have high value at first glance, but she's not rooted. She seeks the next upgrade, not a connection that deepens with time, the next applause, the next moment that makes her feel like she's winning in the eyes of others. But love isn't a show, and men who want something lasting must learn to see beyond the surface. A relationship built on image will always be fragile. What's left must be accurate when the lights fade and the crowd leaves. And if it isn't, no amount of status will hold it together. Sign 6. She lacks empathy. You often don't notice it until you're already knee-deep in something painful, a hard week, a loss, a quiet moment when you expected warmth but met only cool indifference. She doesn't ask how you're doing. She doesn't lean in when your voice softens. Instead of support, you feel alone, like your pain is invisible. That's when it becomes clear she doesn't think with you, only near you. Empathy, in its most accurate form, is not about fixing someone's pain. It's about witnessing it, standing beside it, and saying, "I see you." But when a woman lacks empathy, her detachment during your low moments says far more than silence ever could. You might explain something weighing on you, hoping for comfort, but she changes the subject. Or worse, she points the lens back on herself, how your hardship affects her. The result? You feel not just unheard, but unseen. This isn't about expecting a savior. Men don't seek rescue, they seek recognition, especially from the one they've let closest. And when empathy is absent, even the strongest man starts to feel emotionally homeless. You begin to doubt her care and your worth in the relationship. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." This isn't just about personal virtue. It's also about choosing wisely who you walk with. If you strive to be a man of substance who offers support and holds space for others, you deserve someone who reflects that same emotional depth. A woman's lack of empathy isn't just a flaw in behavior, it's a gap in emotional presence. And over time, that gap doesn't close on its own, it widens, until one day, even in her company, you feel more alone than you ever did alone. Sign 7. She disrespects your time. A quiet message is hidden in how a woman treats your time. It doesn't come with raised voices or dramatic exits. It shows up in lateness, the silence of a cancelled plan, and the pause between your message and her reply, which never seems to match the urgency she expects from you. At first you might brush it off. Life gets busy, things come up. But when it becomes a pattern, when your time is constantly rescheduled, postponed, or made secondary, it's not about circumstance anymore. It's about value. A woman who shows up late without apology or cancels at the last minute isn't just changing your evening. She's revealing how little weight she places on your presence. If she makes you wait, but never waits for you if her needs always precede your plans, then you're not sharing space with an equal. You're orbiting someone who places herself at the center of everything. This isn't about being strict with clocks, it's about what lies beneath. Repeated disregard for your time signals something more profound. A lack of respect, a streak of entitlement, or perhaps an assumption that you'll always be there no matter how she treats you. But a man who values himself doesn't wait endlessly for someone who doesn't notice when he's gone. Seneca once said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Time is one of the few things in life you never get back. When someone treats it carelessly, they are treating your life carelessly. When that person is a woman you care about, the sting is sharper because what should have been mutual begins to feel one-sided. Too many men confuse patience with strength. They think waiting for her to change means they're proving loyalty. But time spent waiting for respect is stolen from becoming the man who commands it. A woman who values you will value your time. She will meet you where you are, not keep you standing at the door. If her calendar always trumps yours, if her delays become your new routine, then it's time to ask the question no one wants to face. Is she showing up for you or only for herself? Because love may be patient, but dignity is not disposable. And a man who knows his worth doesn't measure it in minutes lost. Recognizing the signs of toxicity in a relationship isn't about assigning blame or labeling others. It's about honoring your own mental and emotional health. As we've explored, a woman who constantly portrays herself as the victim, who thrives on drama, who manipulates through guilt, who lacks empathy, who obsesses over status and appearances, who refuses to admit when she's wrong, and who repeatedly disrespects your time, is not someone who contributes to a life of peace, stability, or growth. These patterns may emerge gradually, often masked by charm or affection, but over time they drain your energy, erode your confidence, and make you question your worth. The Stoic philosophers remind us that while we can't control another person's actions, we always control our responses, boundaries, and choices. Marcus Aurelius urged us to focus on our minds and let go of what lies outside our control. Epictetus taught that freedom begins with self-mastery. Seneca warned us not to waste precious time on people or situations that pull us away from purpose and peace. In this context, protecting your well-being means walking away from those who repeatedly bring conflict, manipulation, or disrespect into your life, no matter how much history you share or how strong the attachment may feel. Choosing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and self-respect over emotional dependence isn't easy, but it's necessary. You do not need to fix or save someone who refuses to take responsibility for themselves. And you certainly don't need to stay in a situation where your time, values, or emotional energy are consistently disregarded. So take what you've learned today as a reminder that true strength lies not in enduring toxic behavior, but in recognizing it, setting firm boundaries, and choosing relationships that nourish rather than deplete you. You deserve to be around people who bring out your calm, clarity, and confidence, not those who constantly challenge your peace. I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever encountered any of these signs in someone close to you? How did it affect you, and what helped you move forward? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If you found this video meaningful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more thoughtful content on self-awareness, Stoic wisdom, and navigating relationships with clarity and strength. See you in the next one.